So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, broadcast and recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new media and baseball capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Brian Krause had, from 1998 through 2006, what most guys would consider a most excellent day job. He played the character of Leo opposite Alyssa Milano, Holly Marie Combs, Shannon Doherty, and Rose McGowan on the WB hit Charmed. Like I said, not bad work if you can get it. These days, Brian is out making his own mark in the world. In 2009, for example, he'll star in 3 movies: Nowhere to Hide, The Gods of Circumstance, and Growth. And on Saturday, January 10th, he'll host the popular live sketch comedy Acme This Week at the Acme Comedy Theater in Los Angeles. Brian, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Delighted to have you here. I always love it when I've got a guest who's already got the web chat warmed up. There's already people waiting, I think, to talk to you and hear what you have to say, so we're delighted to have you here today.
Thanks. I think that's my mom and all my cousins.
Oh, hi, Mom. You want to say hi? Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Well, I'll do something that I don't usually do. Let me go ahead and give the phone number out now in case people are itching to call in already. If you've got a question or comment or whatever you want to say to Brian Krause, and obviously an actor and co-star of 8 seasons on the TV series Charmed, give us a call at 646-595-3135. We'll get you in as quickly as we can. So let's get right to the meat of things, Brian. I know this is really the biggest thing that's on everybody's mind. Did you get a Christmas card from Shannon Doherty this year?
No.
Okay. Folks, I've done my job here.
Singing telegram.
Oh, really? Oh, man. Seriously, 8 seasons playing opposite those 4 beautiful women. I can't even say it. How cool was that?
It's pretty cool, especially when, when I started on the show, it was possible, one of these we call possible recurring, and, I was only scheduled for 2 episodes, and it built to 5 to 7, and then, season 2 became a regular. It was, it's one of those things that any time you get on a show like that and actually become a regular, it's just kind of a dream come true.
Was there a moment early on, when you were going from the 2 guaranteed spots to, recurring and being on there as a regular, was there something that happened that you can point to and say, okay, that's when I nailed it. That's when I got the long term. It was the work ethic of Shannon and Alyssa and Holly. They set a pretty high mark. They come in, they're prepared, and I just try to do the same thing and always be ready with my lines and everything. And it's something they noticed, and I think they were more than apt to have me around because I came in. I didn't socialize with them like some of the other characters might have. They come in and go, and I think that's when I knew that I had a chance, and and then to hear from them that they were pulling for me was. I knew that if I just kept doing the same thing, that I had a chance of sticking around. Did it require any change to the premise? To have you as an ongoing character as opposed to, pop in and be gone. That's kind of a magical reference, by the way.
For the character?
Yeah.
I think talking to Brad Kern, our creator, head writer, he had always imagined a character like mine being a regular, but I think on the initial pitch of the show, the networks only wanted it to be about the girls, and he wanted someone there to kind of to be a white lighter, and it just took some time for him to be able to write that in, and then once it was there, he was able to expand the show a little more. Which completely unbeknownst to me, and I think could have been anyone. It just, fortunately for me, it happened to work out that Leo was the man.
Charmed is interesting. I'm one of the people who started catching it, I guess, in syndication.
I can't explain why necessarily, except that to tell my wife that I wanted to watch the show with these beautiful women week to week never really went over that well.
Sure.
So for the essence of the show is that there were 3 women who were witches, and then Shannon left after a period of time. For people who are not as familiar with the show, where does Leo fit in?
Well, Leo came in initially as just someone working on the house as a handyman, and then my character wound up falling in love with Holly Marie Combs' character, Piper.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 of us started a relationship. They did not know that I was actually magical until it was finally I was caught, and it was revealed that I was actually their guardian angel, their overseer, their protector, which we later became to find out that that's called a white lighter. So I was kind of sneaking around protecting them, and they didn't know it was me that was actually kind of their guide and protector. And so their guardian angel in a way.
I guess I was going to say, as that developed more and more, how were the fans dealing with that? The idea that a man had to be their kind of a guardian angel, a protector for these 3 women. Is that, did that go over well, or were the fans that had a problem with that?
You know what? It was accepted really well. And in some of the other episodes, we did introduce a few other characters that were being groomed to be white lighters that were women. And there were men and women white lighters for different witches. I just happened to be coincidentally the one for the girls. The most powerful witches in all of the land.
Well, I was going to say, was it ever tough to sit down and talk seriously, in like a story conference or, when you're meeting with fans and realize that you're sitting here talking about witches and white lighters and spells and all this kind of stuff and realize, I can't believe I'm having this conversation?
Sure. It is kind of bizarre to think that, you're talking about, orbing in and out, which is, disappearing and reappearing and blowing people up, with your hands and saying a spell. And, it kind of takes you back to the area of, just witchcraft in general is it's the fantasy of, what can really happen. So, I'm not a believer in that sort of witchcraft, but yet, there's plenty of people that are into Wicca as a religion, as a something they follow. And I think that was something that a lot of people kind of had a problem with initially, the churches, that we were dealing in witchcraft. And I think the one thing that we kind of got past, the witchcraft of it all and kind of just into the greater good. And, if you do good, then things will happen. And, I think that's eventually when we turned it around for the fans. They found out we weren't just about witches, and it was all about the greater good. But it was bizarre, and it still is sometimes talking about vanquishing a level 7 demon on crazy planet.
Is it? I mean, would you put it on a par with the Trekkers, the Trekkies, and their ability to speak within their language and understand each other, but maybe it's not a conversation you want to be overheard having on the bus, for example?
Sure. I think any sci-fi kind of show definitely falls into that that genre. But I'm proud of the show, and I find actually now, like you said, watching it in syndication, I think there's actually more people that watch it now, being that it's on TNT 4 times a day. I think people are finding more time to watch it and kind of understand the show. And it's one of those where you can pick it up almost any episode, any season, and able to follow along. So I guess it's a bit of that sci-fi fantasy.
I find it has some of the same rhythms that a show like Chuck has, or Pushing Daisies, where it's it's not real, but it's got romance, it's got dramedy. It's got drama, it's got comedy. I wanted to say dramedy, and I decided not to, but there you go. It's been a fun show to kind of discover in repeats. I feel I have that same kind of fondness for a show like Smallville, which for whatever reason I probably would be interested in. I just never was able to catch it, in prime time. But I pick it up, if I'm dialing around and I see it, I'll stay with it. I'll stay with Charmed. I mean, first of all, it's hard for me to bypass the ladies. No disrespect to you, but
it was about three women. It wasn't about Leo.
No, I understand. Let's give out the number again. If you've got a question for Brian Krause from Charmed, give us a call, 646-595-3135. Can you, maybe tell us something about each of the four ladies that you worked with over that period of time? Maybe a story that might, or an anecdote that might explain what they're like to be around hour after hour on a TV set? Were any of them any pranksters? Any of them, like to stay off by themselves? Any of them tell you how to fix your own love life? That kind of thing.
Over 8 years, it was everybody got to know each other personally pretty well. That's for sure. And as far as my run of girlfriends and this, that, they definitely knew everything that was going on in my life, and they were constantly telling me who to date and not to date sometimes, and that I was crazy and got to stay away from this type and that type. But as far as like on the show, on the set, all the girls had a really great sense of humor, and I mean, constantly every day was you never were quite sure what was going to happen. Just before a take, after a take, during a take, their sense of humor was it's pretty good. I haven't really been on many sets where you have that many people, like our four actresses that constantly played off each other, and they would mess around with the crew and make them feel, part of the family. So there was always something going on for sure.
Which of the four women do you get asked about the most? I have my suspicions, but I want to ask.
In general, I think the number one question is about Shannon, and everybody wants to know if she's this horrible person that the media has painted, or that she's become in the media. I'd say that's number one, and then probably Alyssa. Is she as beautiful? Is she great? Is she this? And it's almost a yes to both. Although I believe Shannon to be just a really hard worker who has a strong work ethic, and I don't think it bodes well with some other people in power here and there.
It's been interesting. I guess you after an actor or an actress has a track record, you can kind of look and form maybe better conclusions about how they might be to work with based on, if the same things keep happening everywhere they stop. And
sure.
I guess with Shannon it's always controversial, and with Alyssa it's always, yep, she's just getting better looking.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the other two women, Holly Marie and Rose? I mean, no slouches there. They just,
Not at all. Holly's very much, she has her family, and kind of stays to herself. You never find her, too much in the media making waves. She's just a really great actress, and a lot of fun to be around. And I'd say she's very very much a girl next door, and just kind of a normal person. And I found it always a joy to work with her. And it was nice that being my character was married to her, so I'd say I worked with her the most. So if anybody knew all about my life, it would be her. And as far as Rose, when Rose first came on after Shannon, a lot of people didn't think the show would continue, more than a season, and we wound up doing 5 more, which is amazing. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to Rose for coming in, not knowing anybody, working in a genre that she hasn't, television and sci-fi, and some very strong characters with Alyssa and Holly and everyone, and she's just a lot of fun, and if I were to describe her anyway, I'd say she's kooky, fun. She definitely has an ability to make fun of herself, and then dress up and play the starlet that she is.
Would I be wrong in saying that timing is everything? That the WB, when you were at that 2 and 3 year point, and Shannon leaves, the WB needed shows that were somewhat recognizable, even if they hadn't quite become huge hits. They weren't going to part with anything, or any show that was, drawing at least a consistent audience, and that really continued to be their story over all 8 years. And I mean, Charm seemed to really benefit by that. They stayed with the show because they needed a known quantity. The audience grew; it was very loyal. Stop me here if I get any of this wrong.
No, I think you're very right on with all that. And that's to our writers for writing content that was of the times, as far as relationship-wise, emotionally, what was going on in the world at the time. And then I think again, it's the three girls. They're beautiful. They're smart. They're funny. I think that's what kept our show going the most, is that we weren't just a sci-fi show dealing with just blowing up, demons. It was, we dealt with the romance, we dealt with, comedy, we dealt with current issues, and, we weren't just blowing up demons. It's very much about real emotions, real people. They just happen to be in this sci-fi world.
Not that there's anything wrong with just blowing up demons.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, I think we've got a call here. I think I know who this is. Hi, is this Travis?
Yeah, this is Travis. How you doing?
Hey, good. This is Travis Oates from the Acme Theater, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And
Travis.
Hey, how you doing?
All right.
Travis is joining us to talk a little bit about Brian's upcoming appearance on Saturday, January 10th, at the Acme Comedy Theater in Los Angeles. I think the show is at 8 o'clock. Travis, tell us how Brian got involved in this, or you got Brian involved, or whatever the case may be.
Well, I think we roped him into it. We had him come see a show and convinced him doing comedy in a small Los Angeles venue was a good idea for him. What he really doesn't know is it'll probably destroy his career, like it has many, many others. No pressure, Brian. But he came, he came. He saw a show. What we do is basically a Saturday Night Live in Los Angeles. Different celeb every week. And Brian came. He came on Monday, and we wrote a bunch of stuff for him, and he was great. Are you nervous at all, Brian?
Yeah, a little nervous.
I would be.
Saturday, huh?
It's Saturday, yeah. Don't worry. You get a massive 4-hour rehearsal beforehand.
Oh, excellent.
So, yeah.
Sitting here, I'm wondering if it's improv or we scripted. I don't know what's going on.
Oh yeah. It's scripted. We'll get you the scripts eventually.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey Brian, I would be worried. I was just listening to Howard Stern this morning, and Howie Mandel was on there, and he was talking about doing the. This all connects. Trust me. He was talking about doing the being a co-host of the Emmys last fall with the guys from Survivor and Dancing with the Stars and Project Runway, and how the producers of that show, the Emmys, kept promising, oh, we'll have a script, we'll have some things for you to do, and they got down to just a week or two beforehand, and they never did. And those guys went out there and they had to wing it. So make sure you get that script, brother.
Yeah, for sure. And that's going in and watching the show. I think it was one of the last ones last year at Acme, and seeing how they have a great company over there, and everybody's very funny. And I initially thought it was just a kind of an improv, so it was surprising to me that a bit of it is scripted, and kudos to everybody that's in it, because they make it seem like, it's very much off the cuff, and that to me is kind of nerve-wracking because I'm used to having people tell me what to say. so yeah, that's part of the nerves as well.
You'll be fine.
Okay. Travis, Thomas.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll take good care of you. We have a long tradition of having terrified guest hosts come and make them look like they're completely at home and comfortable.
Awesome.
But no, actually Brian was great. He on Monday, everybody was very impressed. Brian actually, he gets all this material thrown at him, some of which is good, some of which is not very good. And it all gets put up, and then afterwards we talk about what should be in the show, and Brian did a really good job, so I anticipate it being a great show.
Travis, will there be any skits involving, Charmed? Yes, there will be, and once the Charmed script, I believe, is about a sequel to Charmed, in which Brian finds out that things are not what they seem, and hilarity ensues, as it often does in sketches. But yes, Brian is roped into a sequel to Charmed that is not very good. It's not just blowing up demons, which is what I just heard the rest of the show was. So. And if I am a devoted Charmed fan, a devoted Brian Krause, okay, let's go with the Charmed part first. If I'm a devoted, loyal Charmed fan, am I likely to be offended by this Charmed sequel?
I don't think you'd be offended, not by the Charmed sequel. There are so many other things that will offend you. We aim to offend pretty much everybody, but I don't know if necessarily it'll be the Charmed. I think as a human being, mostly, you'll be offended if you come see the show, but not because you're a Charmed fan.
But if you're a fan of Brian Krause, you'll be thrilled, I imagine.
Yes, you'd have no choice but to be thrilled. Because he'll be brilliant, he'll never miss a line, and he'll be a comedic genius. Again, no pressure, Brian. No pressure whatsoever.
No pressure.
Brian, have you done much live theater?
I've done one play I did last June, July. We did Glengarry Glen Ross, and I've done one play on a 6-week run, and I probably threw up every night before I went on stage. So
I want the Glengarry leads.
we actually have a celebrity bucket, so feel free.
Is that the one
I won't be eating between now and then.
Is that the bucket, Travis? Is that the bucket that Fred Willard and David Faustino and Matthew Lillard and everyone else on this list have they all used the bucket? I mean, is that a point?
Oh yeah. Christopher Titus, Robert Forrester, Bryan Cranston used the bucket twice, and he won an Emmy. So the nice thing is we don't clean out the bucket. So
kind of induces it.
Yeah. It's a tradition.
Is this Brian for you? Is doing live comedy theater an improv situation? Is this a first step into big adventure movies for you? Because it would seem like it would be a real ball buster.
Yeah, this goes straight into co-starring with Clint Eastwood. For me, it's I haven't had a chance to do much comedy at all. As you know, for actors, you don't quite pick your jobs, as much as they pick you. So for me to take a step in this direction is it's exciting. Because I love the idea of being funny and playing off of people who have great characters. So just the fact that came about, and Travis and everyone there accepted me is it's an honor for sure.
And Travis, Brian is described in the releases as hosting the show. Will he actually be introducing segments, or will he just be in segments? How will that work?
It's structured a lot like Saturday Night Live. He'll come out at the top, talk a little bit, introduce the show basically, and then he'll be in approximately half the sketches throughout the night. So it's kind of a mixture between I would say it's like a Saturday Night Live Mad TV mix, except our sketches aren't 12 minutes, and we have no musical guest. So.
And how often do you do the show with a guest host like Brian?
Every week. We do a new show every week with a new celebrity. Next week, I think it's Tice Dario from So You Think You Can Dance. It's a little exhausting. As soon as the show is done on Saturday, we get one day off, and then on Monday, we start writing all over again. So. If Brian is a little freaked out from this week, he knows how we feel every single week throughout the entire year. We're
Brian,
constantly freaked out.
Brian, the great thing about doing Saturday Night Live would be the legendary after party. Have you inquired about an after party for Acme Theater?
Yeah, I did something about they had me valet parking cars for it or something. I'm not sure what. I think I can get in, but I'm not sure.
We're very famous. Basically, our after party involves grain alcohol and a 80-year-old hooker. It's a lot of fun, and it's kind of a private thing just for Brian that we arranged.
I see. And Travis, before we cut you loose, who else is coming up in subsequent weeks? Who else do you have scheduled?
Like I said, I have Tice Dario coming up next week. At the end of the month, we have Kato Kalin, which should be an interesting show. And trying to think who else we have coming up. I should have known that you were going to ask that question. Those are the two off the top of my mind. I don't know if we have any. We have somebody scheduled for February. My publicist is going to kick my butt for that one. Those are the two names off the top of my list, though.
All right. Well, let me help you with this part. Folks, if you would like to come out this Saturday, January 10th, 2009, and I give the year because people will be listening to this show for months and years to come.
Exactly.
January 10th, 2009, at 8 p.m., it's the Acme Comedy Theater in Los Angeles, 135 North La Brea Avenue. You can get tickets online, www.acmecomedy.com. That's solid, acmecomedy.com. How'd I do? Did I pitch it well?
You pitched it great. You're hired. From now on, you do all our publicity.
Actually, I think I was the guy who was down to do the show in February. I'm sorry that you didn't have that name handy.
Oh, well, then we can hardly wait.
Well, listen, Travis, Brian, you stick around. But, Travis, thanks so much for calling in and joining us to talk about Brian and his new budding career as a live comedian.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, folks, that frees up a line. If you want to get your call in now and talk to Brian Krause, give us a call, 1-646-595-3135. I'm assuming that Brian is dying for your calls because, you know, the sound of my voice has got to be grating after a while. I have to ask you this, and we'll come off the subject of Charmed in just a minute. I don't want to beat a dead demon, forever, but did you come into the show or come out of the show believing in any of this kind of stuff? Were you familiar with Wiccans? Did you have any interest in witchcraft or magic?
I've always known of it. I've never kind of been well read on it or anything. I think throughout the 8 years of the show, I met so many people that were practicing Wiccans that it kind of put it more into a reality for me. That I think a lot of the people that watched the show watched it to see, how much the girls actually practiced on the show, how real we were to the Wiccan religion and such. So you definitely got a bigger respect for it, and realizing that a lot of people take this super serious, and that it wasn't just a mere fantasy. So that for me kind of opened my eyes a little bit to some of the practices people actually have.
Did the ongoing success of the show Can you attribute any of that to the parallel enormous success of the Harry Potter series and the interest that younger and younger kids had in magic?
Yeah, I think that definitely helped, and I think it was season 5 or 6 we actually introduced a magic school in which our children went to, and I wound up teaching at and being a part of. And we definitely crossed the parallel of Harry Potter into charm for sure. Yeah, I think that definitely helped. So many people worldwide learned to accept it on a grand scale, and our show just fell right into it.
And then finally, last question, charm related. The first Darren, the second Darren, or the Will Ferrell Darren, Bewitched? Which one would you go with?
Gosh.
These are the tough questions.
Let's see, there were 2 Darrens on the original show, right?
Right.
I think the second Darren lasted the longest, so I would say I think he was probably the funniest. I actually never saw Bewitched, the movie.
Okay.
Although I'm a huge Will Ferrell fan.
Well, then you should go see that movie. It was a lot better than the critics gave it credit for. And
okay, I'll Netflix it.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. You got to go to something like that with low expectations, and then it's very easy for the movie to meet those expectations. And Ferrell was good, and actually I thought it was one of the better Nicole Kidman movies. I know nobody will agree with me, but that's just me.
No, and that's the interesting thing about movies and television that and I think our show kind of falls into that as well. Is that a lot of people don't watch it because we're not Law and Order, we're not this and that, we're not some huge budget thing, and you look at it, sometimes entertainment is just that. It's just entertainment and fun, and sometimes it's fun to just kind of get away, and I think that's what our show offered. It's just a chance to kind of get away and get into a fantasy world that's you can kind of do anything. So I should definitely check it out. You're right.
Now I suspect that Warner Brothers is probably. Maybe I got the wrong production company, but Warner Brothers or whoever the production house on the series was is making its money in syndication, probably more so than they did even from the prime time run. Are you and the girls making anything on syndication, or is that are those days behind you?
Yeah, definitely. Residuals kind of go on and on, although the scale is constantly broken down over the years. But yeah, it's still, I keep checking the mailbox and, thanking the heavens that I was on the show for so long.
Okay.
That's for sure. So it's nice that it's actually running, worldwide, and, I get a lot of letters from Italy and Germany and Israel and Australia, and, it's interesting to think that, it's in so many different languages and people all over the world are watching. So I'm happy about that for sure.
Do you get a lot of interesting photos in that mail?
I haven't. Years ago, I got a few. One that strikes me that I don't think I'll ever release the image was from some woman in Missouri or Alabama or something like that, and she had the letter was written by her father, and it was kind of a please come meet my daughter thing, and she was a rather large woman, and she was in a bikini, and she was doing this photo shoot kind of in front of the barn, bent over her car, and it was strange that the letter actually came from her father, who was trying to pass her off to me to marry his daughter off, and that was probably the strangest photo I think I've ever got.
I don't think I need to see it, but I got the picture real clear.
Yeah, it was a little bizarre.
Well, let's change gears and let's talk about what's new in your career. You've endured an awful lot of charmed questions, and you were very gracious about that. But as I understand it, you've got 3 films scheduled for release in 2009: Nowhere to Hide, The Gods of Circumstance, and Growth. Have I got that right?
Yes, and there's another one that I believe they'll have done by the end of the year. It's called Cyrus, which we just wrapped up basically right around Thanksgiving.
All right. Well, why don't we, if you don't mind, why don't we go through each one? You can tell us a little about them, if there's any co-stars that we recognize or plot elements, just to give your fans something to look forward to. Why don't we start with Nowhere to Hide?
Nowhere to Hide. John Snyder and I kind of play budding rivalries who are in love with the same girl. And she's left me because I'm kind of crazy and been imprisoned, and I wind up stalking her and chasing her kind of all over the place, to tell her how much I love her and that we are meant to be together. And it kind of turns into a bit of a road movie where we, chase each other down and kind of meet up at the end and have kind of a grand meeting, if you will.
Is that John Snyder from Dukes of Hazzard fame?
That's right, in Smallville, exactly.
At Smallville, yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been interesting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm thinking there's a bit of an age gap between the two of you.
There is, and that was the interesting thing with the girl who plays in between us, and what she finds in me and what she finds in him, and him being a little bit more stable of a character as opposed to me, and especially just out of prison and being a freakazoid. It was kind of her changing her life and deciding to, have something a little more stable and not be with this kook. Which the most interesting thing of filming the movie was I really only had maybe one or two scenes with them in the whole entire movie. It was mostly me. You'd see me talking to other people to get information about where they are, and then constantly following them. So it's, to have such an effect on characters in which you never actually are in the scene with was, it's a different approach.
Interesting. All right. And what about the Gods of Circumstance?
Gods of, no. I think. Oh my gosh! Did I just get those backwards? That was the Gods of Circumstance. Nowhere to.
My goodness. Okay.
Yeah, excuse me. Nowhere to Hide was. Which one is that? I just finished it. John Murlowski directed. Again, it's kind of the same thing. I play a police officer who, at the beginning of the movie, is murdered. And my wife kind of fights to, figure out why and who, and she's being tortured by someone who is basically living in his basement and is controlled the world through computer, all the cameras, all the lights, all the, the OnStar in the car, and he's constantly trying to kind of control her life, kidnaps his daughter, and what he's trying to get out of it is uncertain until the end. And then I kind of come back in at the end and have a video dialogue with my wife, something that I left in a locker for her that kind of reveals who this character was and what he's about and kind of how to defeat him.
So that's Nowhere to Hide.
That's Nowhere to Hide. So excuse me for getting the two of those.
That's all right. And now
the title works for both.
Well, there you go. Well, who couldn't be confused by that? And so the Gods of Circumstance is the movie with John Snyder, and that sounds a little bit like a romantic comedy, or is it mostly a drama?
More like a romantic drama or thriller, if you will. And that's why I said it's Nowhere to Hide, because they can't seem to shake me. But ultimately, our writer, Michael Thacker, who it was kind of a saying that he's had, it's one of those things. It's the gods of circumstance. It's, there's some things just happen that are out of our control. And, with John Snyder's character, losing a job, the construction industry falling apart, him running back into this girl, it's sometimes things just happen that, we didn't try for, we didn't ask for, we didn't look for, and they just kind of come about. And and that's how my character is with them as well. It's, you know, they didn't ask for me to be, they're trying to get away from me, and yet the gods of circumstance just seem to constantly bring me into their life, and it's something that they have to deal with to be able to move on.
Now, did you work with John enough to tell us anything about him? He's certainly had an interesting career between Dukes and Smallville, and
honestly, I had one night with him in which we had like a little fight scene, and that was it. On that night, I talked to him a bit, and I actually worked with him, back in '95 on a movie of the week we did called The Bandits, in which we talked about a little bit. Just a really nice guy, and it's nice to know that nice guys do have success and stick around. And he's very well versed on the set as far as camera position and the whole thing. And I got to watch him drive a truck and do some cool driving stuff, which he's known for being a stunt driver, and he's really good at it. So that was kind of cool. And I grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard, and it was everything it took for me not to call him Bo.
And asked to date his and asked to date his cousin.
Yeah, exactly.
Daisy. Yeah.
I'm like, so where's Daisy?
And did you ever get into those Daisy Dukes?
Yeah.
And what about Growth? Now that sounds like it's either a comedy or an economic development roadmap.
Growth is I'd call it, it's a sci-fi thriller. Growth, it's Marcia Monroe, Chris North, and Christopher Shand, and basically I play the boyfriend and their brother and sister, and they inherit some land on this island, and the plan is to sell it and take our big inheritance and kind of run away. And what happens, on this island, which has been quarantined, there's a parasite in which kind of takes over Christopher Shand's character, and trying to figure out what it is and what the heck's going on. And he develops through this parasite a kind of a superhuman, kind of like the Hulk kind of infection, and when he gets pissed off, it comes out. So it's us trying to figure it out, and the locals trying to quarantine him, and not wanting to lose the brother and the family, and people die, people live, and it's kind of one of those thrillers. I wouldn't call it a horror as much as a thriller.
It sounds like my cup of tea. Is that one that has potential for a sequel? Sounds like it.
It does. Not everyone dies at the end, and the parasites are still on the island, waiting for the next unsuspecting visitors.
All right, and then the fourth movie you added to the group was Cypress, which I think you said finished production in November. What's that one about?
Cyrus.
Cyrus. I'm sorry. Cyrus.
No, it's quite all right. I play a character who's kind of a loner, and I own a roadside burger stand. And the story picks up years back when I was married and trying to start this fledgling business. And I wound up catching my wife cheating on me with this other guy, and early on life I wind up murdering them both in kind of cold blood. And the story is about one of the top serial killers in America who's killed over 250 people, and they've just kind of gone missing, and nobody's ever solved this case. And so the story starts out where you have a documentary crew interviewing people of the missing relatives, and kind of what happened, where it happened, and then we wind up finding this one gentleman, Lance Hendrickson, who seems to know a little bit too much about the whole thing and the characters and everybody. And between him and I, it's a question of, who did it and who's involved. For me, it's a very dark character. in which I played just kind of this loner that doesn't talk much. Just really disturbing. It's definitely the anti-Leo. Again, that one definitely has a setup for a sequel. And as I was there, I was fortunate enough to be put in the position to direct the second unit on the film, which
cool.
was the first step for me, which was very exciting. And we built it out, and it's very scary, and again, it's very psychological and thriller-wise. With a bit of horror, I guess, to it. It's not quite so much Saw, brutal murder, but I think the scaring of people is based on not sure why or what's happening to them, and they're very uncertain as to what's going on as well.
Well, if Lance Henriksen is in it, it's got to be kind of creepy.
Yeah, and he does a great job, and you just look at him and his voice and his presence, and he's very you think he's definitely got a whole piece of the pie and is responsible for people disappearing for sure.
All right, well, I want to change gears one more time. We go into the last segment of the show. One of the things I noticed that looking over your career credits is it occurred to me that not many actors have worked with such a wide variety of former child stars as you have. I mean, obviously on Charmed, you worked with Alyssa Milano from Who's the Boss, but also Will Wheaton you've worked with, who was a kid on Star Trek Next Generation. You worked with, I'll probably say her name wrong, Soleil Moonfry from Punky Brewster days. And even Ben Stiller's wife, Christine Taylor, who played Marcia in the Brady Bunch movie.
Right.
Do these and you worked with a lot of them, most of them several years ago when their child star fame was still pretty fresh, I imagine. Do these actors and actresses, do they tend to have a lot of baggage that maybe grown-ups don't? Other grown-ups would not.
I think the through line for a lot of them, and not actually the four that you mentioned, are so well adapted, and fortunately for them, they're not in therapy 24 hours a day like you would think for so many, because they reach a fame at 12 years old, which I have a 12-year-old son, and I couldn't imagine what it would be like for him to have the whole world know who he is and praise him so much. And I think it's a credit to them and their parents and their friends for keeping them grounded and having a really strong idea of who they are. And it's unfortunate that, a lot of them, they didn't go to prom. They didn't go to, normal high school events. They weren't able to be on the team, or, just everything that we go through as kids and growing up. A lot of those things they didn't get to experience because they were on a set, being treated, and as the superstar. So I think there's definitely a piece that's missing as far as development as such. But again, Alyssa and Will and Soleil, they just all had great families and friends around them that kept them very grounded. Which is, it's a credit to their parents and the strong will that they all seem to share in common.
Do you, if your son, and I have a daughter who's 12, so I'm curious about this. If your son comes to you in a couple of years and says, "Dad, I want to go into the family business. I want to act," would you send him to boarding school or military school, or would you say, "Sure, let me introduce you to my agent"?
I think initially I'd be like, "That's great." And now you're kicked out of the house and pay your own bills. It's kind of like what my parents did to me. When I decided to stop going to college, they said, "All right, well, chase your dream, but now you're responsible to kind of take care of everything." And for me, I would push my son to go to college and get an education, and at least dabble in the idea of having something real before he chased a dream. But honestly, if it's his passion and he believes in it, and I think once he's 18, it's kind of up to him to find his path. But before that, I don't want him to become emancipated, and I don't want to be a stage dad. That's for sure. And as long as he's of right mind and really knows the decision and choice that he's making, then I would support it for sure.
Okay. Well, I think this is the last question. You've got 4 movies that are done that will hopefully all find their way out in distribution this year, one way or the other. So that's done. That's behind you. What do you have lined up beyond the Acme Comedy Theater on Saturday for 2009?
At the moment, it's pray that there's no strike and everything continue. Although SAG has valid points for striking, I think it'd be rather irresponsible at this point. Just to keep the economy going here in Los Angeles and around the world as far as entertainment goes. With that in mind, I know there's pilot season coming up if we can keep going. And just kind of put myself back out there and see what can happen. And beyond that, I've been writing a series, a pilot, with a partner of mine, and we're a couple episodes in and just trying to break that out. So I'd say in the next month or two, it'll be trying to pitch that and get it sold and see if we can make that happen.
Would you? Okay, I lied. One more question. Would you ever do another series if the opportunity presented itself?
Absolutely. Like you said, one of the greatest day jobs ever. It's nice to have just something normal, consistent, whether it be here in LA or New York or Vancouver, to be able to do something that's, a constant. That's the blessing in our industry. We can't all be superstars that, go from 3 months on a film to 3 months on a film. So I think the next greatest thing, if not even better, is to have a show that's constantly running and you're able to, just pay your bills month to month and make a decent living at it. And then it's every week you're staying sharp. And I'd say that's probably one of the greatest things about Charmed is that, in 8 seasons I learned so much about the camera and lighting and blocking and acting and the producing end of it and what goes into it. And it's amazing to figure out that there's 150 people that are a part of it, and without them, it just doesn't even make it to television. So, you learn a lot by being on a show, and it's fast paced, and every week you get to do something different, and it'd be exciting. I definitely welcome that with open arms.
All right. Well, folks, you can see actor Brian Krause in 4 new films in 2009, including Nowhere to Hide, The Gods of Circumstance, Growth, and Cyrus, which I think I had a problem saying before because I was thinking, why are you making a movie about Miley and Billy Ray? But okay, that's why I've said so. Cyrus, and you can order tickets. I bet they're going to change that name now that I've made that joke. You can order tickets for his appearance this Saturday, January 10th, 8 p.m. at the Acme Comedy Theater, where he'll be the host. That's in Los Angeles on La Brea. www.acmecomedy, A-C-M-E, Acme, like in the Roadrunner movies, That's where the Roadrunner always gets the stuff. Or, I'm sorry, that's where Wile E. Coyote always gets the stuff to blow up the Roadrunner. Acmecomedy.com. And, of course, real fans will want to order the box set of Charmed episodes, the entire run of the series, which is available on Amazon.com and MrMedia.com. Brian, it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Absolutely, I appreciate the time.
All right, best of luck this year. You got a lot of projects ahead of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope they all do well and people rush out to see them. That'd be great.
That'd be great. Well, thank you again so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
No worries. Thank you as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay. And, folks, for more great TV-related interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's MrMedia.com, where you can listen to my earlier conversations with the stars of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Worst Week, Chuck, Top Chef, Tell Me You Love Me, and many more. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites. That's whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, Pointer Online, Digital Journal, Podcast Pickle, Vox, Folio, Mediafly, Podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo, or iTunes. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman, ANDELMAN.com. You can also follow Mr. Media on Facebook or on Twitter, www.twitter.com/Andelman, ANDELMAN. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate when you share a piece of your day with